Hey, what's up, everyone? I want to welcome you guys to another episode of Here's What I Think with your host, Charles Tabansi, where we discuss everything from current events, economics, politics, and how it all relates to business and life. And today we have a hell of a show in store for you guys. Before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So today we're reacting to the mega interview that just came out with Donald Trump finally being interviewed by Joe Rogan, who is the #1 podcaster in the universe, right? So far, the interview, based on what I'm seeing in about 10 to 12 hours, is getting about 1 million views an hour. It has about 12 million views thus far, and it's generated, last time I checked, over 200,000 comments. 200,000 comments. I mean, it's crazy. So what happened? When I found out about it, I immediately clicked on it to see what these gentlemen were discussing. And the minute they got into it, from the onset, like literally from the start of the interview, it seemed like Joe Rogan was actually endorsing Donald Trump based on the language and his tonality when speaking with him. Now, it's important that I say he didn't explicitly say I'm endorsing Donald Trump, but based on how he was introducing him and receiving him to his platform, I was like, man, it looks like Joe's probably going to, throw his support in the direction of Donald Trump. So for those of you who didn't see the beginning, or rather hear the beginning of the show, the interview, want to play some of it for you now, and then want to come back and give you guys our thoughts. Take a listen to this here.
And I think,
it's funny. You need at least the attitude of a comedian when you're doing this business. This is a very dangerous business. First of all, it's a very tough business.
It's the most dangerous business.
It's the most, well, for a job?
Yes. I mean, other than going to war and being a firefighter or being a cop, it's the most dangerous business.
It's the most dangerous. For being president is the most dangerous.
Especially you. I mean, you haven't even got to the election. There's been 2 assassination attempts, and they've brushed those out of the news like it was nothing.
Yeah, they'd rather not talk about them.
Imagine if there was assassination attempts on Biden, how hard people would be attacking the right, how they would be trying to get guns taken away from people. They would try to ramp up gun laws. They would try to figure out some way to blame you. If there was attacks if Biden got shot in the ear, we would have never heard the end of it.
But I think he's in good shape because it's only consequential presidents. If you take a look at what's happened, look, I'm for having countries pay us billions and billions and trillions even dollars. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China. Nobody took in 10 cents, not one other president. I do things that make it, that don't necessarily make me so popular. I just do what's right. And when you do that, you're more, look at Iran. We would have never had the attack on Israel at all. Iran was broke. I told China, if you buy, you can't do business in the United States under any circumstance. We're going to go cold turkey with China. Some people think that would have been a good idea anyway. But if you buy any oil, 1 barrel of oil from them, you're not doing business. And I said that to many countries. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money. But I make myself, I understand what I'm doing. You make yourself a target. And it's a very dangerous business. But if you just look at statistically, so I saw a thing, I don't know if it's right, but 0.1% for a race car driver. It's a pretty dangerous business, right?
Yeah.
0.1% for a bull rider. I tell you, to me,
you're talking death.
These guys that ride the bulls is worse than UFC. It's worse.
Yeah.
These guys, you see these big monster bulls, and you see it in slow motion where the foot is like, an inch away from the head. If it hits him, the guy's gone. But they die. They die.
So 0.1% die. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 0.1% die.
Right.
And they certainly get hurt badly. Really, they can't walk after a certain period of time. But with a president, if you look at
the amount of assassination attempts.
And attempts, too.
Yeah.
And attempts. No, it's a very dangerous position. I never thought of that, by the way, when I did it. You don't tend to think.
Did you just assume because people loved you on The Apprentice, they were going to love you as a president?
I figured it would be so easy. It's
well,
very
it probably
interesting.
would have been if the media didn't attack you the way they did. If they didn't conflate you with Hitler. I mean, even today, like Kamala was talking about you and Hitler. They're going to take what you said about Robert E. Lee. Oh, Donald Trump wishes the South won.
That's right. He loves Robert E. Lee.
They love to take things out of context and distort things.
So you heard what Joe Rogan had to say to Donald Trump in the beginning of the interview. What are my thoughts? First of all, I think this is a mega move on the part of Donald Trump to get Joe Rogan's interview. Very big one, especially given the fact that he didn't do the 60-minute interview for reasons we're not going to go into because that's a totally different show. But he didn't go on 60 Minutes, which is another huge platform. But him scoring the Joe Rogan interview, I think, is a very big one. not only because of the views that is going to get there's going to get him in terms of the exposure, but because of Joe Rogan's initial position on Trump. Joe Rogan has been reluctant for years to even entertain the idea of Donald Trump coming on his podcast. It was just something he was not open to. I remember the show when Patrick David went on his podcast, tried to convince him, and Joe Rogan seemed visually turned off by Patrick David's advances in terms of him trying to convince him to get Donald Trump on the podcast. So for him to get to the point, 11 days before the election, for him to now have Donald Trump show up on his podcast shows not only the shift that is taking place in the political landscape, but also the potential momentum that Donald Trump can have going into election day. Now, based on some of the polling that we've seen, it's still a very close race. Don't get it twisted. But nevertheless, it shows a shift. And almost from a symbolic standpoint, it looks as if Trump has won over Rogan. Symbolically, that's what it looks like. I've only watched about 45 minutes of their sit down, but if you listen to Joe Rogan and Donald Trump going back and forth with one another, it would almost seem as if Joe Rogan is kind of softened up on a lot of his positions that were anti-Trump. That's the way it came off to me. I probably have to watch the full interview, but that's what it seems like to me. So what I want to know from you guys is simply this. Number one, do you think Joe Rogan having Donald Trump is him unofficially endorsing Trump? And number two, do you think that this is going to sway some undecided voters who are maybe supporters of Joe Rogan to ultimately vote for Donald Trump? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section, and we'll catch you guys on the next show.